His end did not come with a swift sword. In the dusty courtyard of an eastern citadel, a giant beast towered over him. Heat shimmered around the prisoner. Its foot hovered, Mahout waiting for the signal. The crowd murmured, knowing what was about to unfold. They would see a man crushed, bone by bone. They did not kill him quickly. They had trained this beast to prolong his agony. As the heavy foot came down, bones cracked like dry branches and the air filled with his screams. This is the death that awaited a Persian general in ancient India, a punishment reserved for those who defied kings. He was no mere soldier. Once a satrap of the great king, he governed a region of northern India when the empire pushed east. Sent to collect tribute and keep order, he instead squeezed the villages, taking gold, grain, and sons for his army. He bought loyalty with feasts, then bled them with cruelty. His fall sent tremors through the empire. If a king's own satrap could be trampled, none were safe. When whispers of his fate reached royal courts, men looked at their elephants not as symbols of might, but as instruments of terror. The message was clear. Defiance meant death beneath the beast's foot. To understand how a man could end under an elephant's foot, we must step back. The Achaemenid Empire, vast and stretching from Anatolia to northern India, relied on satraps to rule far frontiers. Their orders were to collect tribute and enforce Persian law. Far from Persepolis, loyalty wavered. In India, elephants were more than animals. They were beasts, symbols of authority and war machines. Kings trained them to spear foes with tusks and to tear flesh with their trunks. Under their mahouts, they obeyed every cruel command. They could crush a man with one foot and break bones like sticks. Execution by elephant was not improvised. Certain elephants were kept solely for punishment. Their mahouts taught them to kill quickly by stamping on a head, or to torture slowly by crushing limbs one by one, dragging the convict until bones dislocated and screams drowned the drums and hearts stopped. For years, the satrap used these very elephants to instill fear. Tax collectors rode beside them to villages. Those who could not pay were thrown underfoot. The message worked for a time. People whispered prayers to the beasts, but resentment simmered and tales of crushed neighbors spread like poison. Across the border, Indian kings watched with fury. They saw elephants as sacred, not for tax. When the satrap seized a prince from a rival clan and sentenced him to die beneath an elephant, their clans united. The act turned tribute into rebellion, and news of his cruelty spread through forests. When the rebels struck, they moved swiftly. Merchants blocked roads, farmers hid grain, and archers harried Persian patrols. The satrap's palace became a prison as his own soldiers deserted. He sent messengers to the great king, but no help came. In desperation, he offered clemency that no one trusted. He tried to ride out with his elephants to scatter them, but the beasts refused to trample their own handlers. His mahouts joined the uprising, turned their animals aside, and blocked his escape. Cornered, he was taken alive to the very square where he had condemned so many. Now he would face judgment. In that square, elders formed a council. They listed his crimes: stolen harvests, murdered princes, using sacred animals to kill. He argued that he acted under orders, that he kept peace. A silence fell when a woman stepped forward, holding the broken bracelet of her son crushed by his elephant. Her tearless gaze broke what was left of his defense. The council sentenced him to the very punishment he had inflicted on others. He was to be bound to a stake while the execution elephant circled him, waiting for the command. The satrap's face drained of color as he realized the sentence was final. They dragged him to the center, tied ropes around his limbs, and fixed them to the ring on the elephant's leg. The animal stood still, its trunk gently swaying as if oblivious. Drums beat, and a hush fell. Spectators pressed forward, some eager, others sick with dread. Sweat gleamed on his skin. At the mahout's command, the elephant began to move. Slowly, it stepped forward, dragging the ropes taut. The satrap's arms were yanked, his joints strained. He cried out, and the crowd gasped. Dust rose, sinews popped. But this was just the beginning. The beast had been taught to make the pain last. The elephant lifted a forefoot and placed it on his leg, pressing down until bone and sinew gave way. The crack echoed. He screamed again. The beast shifted and repeated the act on his other leg, then on an arm. Each pause stretched his terror. The executioner wanted everyone to remember this sound. When his limbs were shattered, the mahout urged the beast forward, dragging him along the ground. With each step, his broken body lurched. The ropes jerked him over stones, dislocating his shoulders. Dust clung to his skin. People covered their mouths, but they could not look away. A low moan rose. Finally, as his life flickered, the mahout signaled the end. The elephant lifted its back foot and placed it squarely on his chest, crushing ribs and forcing the air from his lungs. Then it moved to his head. One final push, and silence replaced his screams. The crowd stood frozen, unable to cheer. The beast stood above the flattened body, its mahout wiped sweat. The drums stopped. Women whispered prayers, men looked away, some trembling, some relieved. The execution had lasted only minutes, but the image would linger for generations. Even the elephant seemed to sense it had crossed a line. As the body was taken away, a murmur rippled through the crowd. The oppressor, who had once used elephants to terrify them, now lay flattened by the same force. Some felt justice, others pity. Stories of that day traveled far, painting the Persians as vulnerable and the local clans as fearless. In Persepolis, whispers grew about the rebellion. The great king had lost a satrap and the aura of invincibility. He could not march east. Other wars occupied him. Messages went unanswered. In the vacuum, local rulers consolidated power, forging new alliances. Fear grew in the palace. Each rumor stung. This story shows how abused power turns on itself. Elephants that carried kings became instruments of justice. How long can cruelty sustain authority before it collapses? The calculus of fear stops working eventually. History does not forget such reversals. It asks if we would stand up or look away. Imagine standing in that crowd. Would you have cheered or turned away? Would you have pitied the man who had shown no mercy? The sight of the elephant's foot pressing down stays with us because it reveals the thin line between power and vulnerability, and fear pulses through the ages. Echoes ripple. Thank you for witnessing this dark chapter. Tell us how this story makes you feel. Do you see justice or vengeance? Did the satrap deserve compassion? Your thoughts help us explore history's shadows together. Share your view and let us know what tale you want us to uncover next. We read every comment. If this execution shocked you, wait until our next tale. We'll travel to another court where intestines were pulled out before a cheering crowd and fate turned yet again. Dark history holds many more horrors and lessons. Subscribe to join us as we step into the shadows of the past. Stay tuned for more.